I want your thoughts on this. Should the police crack down on cannabis? 0207 862 2222 is the number that you need. More than a quarter of the country's police and crime commissioners have written a letter to the Minister for Crime and Prevention, and they want cannabis to be upgraded from a Class B drug to a Class A drug. Now, that's the most serious category we have. It's the same category like cocaine, ecstasy, magic mushrooms, and heroin, which would mean potential life sentence for those caught supplying the drug and up to 7 years behind bars for those found in possession. Now, they even claim that the cumulative effect of cannabis on society may actually be far worse than heroin. And they say it is a gateway to harder drugs. Ayo, what do you make of these calls to put cannabis in that Class A category?
I don't actually agree. I've been looking to see if we'd move to a Canadian model and almost legalise it and make it a source of income for the government. I think we have a dwindling economy, and I think we need anything we can get. And if we actually were to legalise it, we would make it safer in some ways. Some of the consequences are people getting cannabis-induced psychosis because they're getting these really strong strains. But if it was legalised, it'd be regulated and we could kind of stop that black market access to the more dangerous ones, and it'd be safer. And then it'd be like getting a glass of wine. It could
legalise it, control it, tax it.
Yeah, make money on it.
Is where you would be. Angela, where do you stand?
I couldn't disagree more. The state has a responsibility to protect the public for the things that you've already nodded to, Alexis, and you have as well, about the fact that, for example, it can induce a psychotic state. We have a massive mental health crisis in this country. Why would we absolutely sanitise and allow for a drug which has got very robust and clear connections with that kind of psychotic state to be more widely available? And in terms of mainstreaming it, the people that supply cannabis also, they're on the kind of the rat line that they supply other stuff as well.
So isn't there the argument that if you were going to decriminalise it, or perhaps even legalise it, but those are two separate issues, but if you take the criminality away, then those people go out of business?
No, I don't think so, because people, they're always going to find a way. We've seen that. There is a way with anything. If there is a potential, market forces say that if there's a potential for an audience and for people to hand over money for stuff, then there's always going to be that. I mean, I think it's for the birds, this idea that you'll put them out of business. I think ultimately there is legislation there, there is evidence there to show that it can act as a gateway drug. We know that it has a negative impact on people's health. Why on earth, why would we want to do more to make it more readily accessible? It just makes absolutely, the maths and the logic make no sense to me.
Go on, Ayo.
Alcohol has a negative impact. And remember, alcohol was banned, there was prohibition. And what did the government do? They made it legal because they could make money off it. And then they could make sure that the really dangerous alcohol that people were brewing at home at these ridiculous percentages of alcohol were no longer available. We need to reduce the fentanyl-laden cannabis, or the ones that are really, really dangerous. By doing this, I think actually we take away the risk and we can deal with the mental health epidemic that's the consequence of the really dangerous cannabis.
See, people always bounce out the alcohol argument as a way of kind of saying, well, what about this? Two wrongs do not make a right. OK, I think the cat's out, that we sort of have, there are certain social cues with alcohol. We respectfully accept that within limits, the government has prescribed limits for how you can safely imbibe alcohol. And this idea, so you can say, so there's the Department of Health recommend that you shouldn't have more than...
There's recommendations, but there's no limits. There's no one who's going to stop you.
No.
Binge drinking culture shows that.
But I mean, I can tell you that 39% of all violent crime are alcohol related. So that's quite a high amount, which it's very difficult to get the cannabis figures on that because cannabis is a criminal offence still.
Yeah.
And when you look at papers that have been done medically speaking, again, we have to put the proviso that there are certain strains of cannabis that are too strong and can cause some serious incidents. But when you take regular cannabis and put it next to alcohol as a drug, as a substance, there is enough medical opinions, and again, not all opinions are saying the same thing, to say that alcohol is actually much more damaging.
But
to
why
parts of
why
your
does
health.
it have to be a zero-sum game? If we're going to
That's
have
a good question.
So if you want to have a conversation about alcohol, put that one on a shelf and have the conversation. I'm
Yep.
open to that discussion. I absolutely disagree with the idea that because alcohol somehow is considered more dangerous, you've got the evidence for violent crime, etc., that somehow that should be a get-out-of-jail card for
Sure.
cannabis.
I think that's a very, very valid argument. Look, let's find out what people are saying at home. Paul in Greater Manchester. Paul, welcome to the show. What do you think the government should do? Should they put it up to Class A drug?
Well, I've just been listening to Angela, and it just makes me wonder if she's one of them people who would be annoyed with the government for trying to promote healthier food at the minute. You know what I mean? And I definitely agree with the other lady, and I don't agree with Angela on this, because basically when alcohol was made legal, people didn't make it illegally the same, and the same with cigarettes. People aren't selling them illegally. You might get odds and sods doing it. So I definitely think cannabis should be legal. I hate it myself. I hate the smell of it. I wish people didn't smoke it. But the problem isn't going to go away. We can make taxes on it. It takes it out of the criminals. And we have personal experience in my family of someone who's addicted to drugs and worse than cannabis. And it's awful, the criminal element. So at least if you have drugs legal and they're made properly, they're safer, and it takes the criminal element out. And other countries are going the other way, so why are we going backwards? I don't get it.
Paul, have you noticed, you talked about you hating the smell of it, and have you noticed that smell more frequently where you are in Greater Manchester? Because I can tell you that in London, walking outside in the street and in the parks, I've definitely in the last few years noticed a lot more people openly smoking cannabis.
I'm not sure really. It's not something I've monitored.
Okay.
Personally, I think there's an argument more for the non-smoking cannabis. Like people have it in cakes, don't they, in Amsterdam and all that. And
Yeah.
I just think smoking's bad for you generally. So people who make the argument that cannabis is better than cigarettes and alcohol, well, yeah, maybe in non-smoking form, but smoking's dreadful for your lungs. So I'm on that argument as
Okay.
well. I'm on that side of the
Paul,
argument.
Paul,
from-
thanks for kicking us off.
I'm from Manchester. I should just say, Paul, by the way, I'm not one of those people that wants to ban health foods. You know, a fellow Mancunian, I talk straight like you do, and I've got a different opinion to you. But yeah, you're right, in the city centre, and actually in some nicer areas as well, you can walk around and you get a waft of cannabis too.
It seems to me that there's a lot more of that happening, which I wonder whether that's the reason why you're getting these police officials saying we need to clamp down on it. Paul, thank you for kicking us off. Mike is in East Sussex. Mike, what would you like to say?
Well, I don't believe that marijuana is a gateway drug to heroin. You know, heroin is an evil, evil drug. It kills thousands of people. I've never known anyone to overdose on marijuana.
Yeah.
I just don't see the argument. I think it's ridiculous. You know, they should legalise it, tax it, make money off of it, control it, and make sure that it's, you know, the right strain that's being sold. I just don't believe that it's a gateway drug to heroin. We all make choices in life.
Yeah.
You know, you can either say yes or no. You know, you're not having your arm twisted up your back to take the heroin. That's a choice that you make, the same as taking marijuana. And as I said just a minute ago, it's not a gateway drug. I just don't believe that.
Do you think that any drugs should be available? I mean, we're sitting here arguing. Angela was making the point saying, look, well, why are we conflating alcohol as there? If alcohol is just as bad, we are trying to regulate it. I mean, does the government have a responsibility to, quote unquote, protect us from these substances, do you think?
Oh, yeah, definitely. You shouldn't make heroin legal. You know, it's a disgusting, filthy drug. Mm-hmm. You know, as I said, marijuana, you know, isn't a gateway drug. It's a very, very, very low drug. You know, lots of people smoke marijuana, you know, at parties and whatever. You know, they don't end up being hooked on it. You know, I used to smoke it myself, and one day I decided to stop, and I just threw my tobacco and my little bit of marijuana in the bin, and I just simply stopped.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah, go on, Angela.
But and I'm glad you had the willpower and the foresight and the strength of character to decide to do that. But why are we even taking the chance? What's the point of spinning the lottery wheel and hoping that people who take cannabis won't have their cognitive function compromised? They won't have developed some kind of psychosis. I've interviewed families whose children have been lost to cannabis because they've developed the different kind of psychological illnesses. I don't understand. As you said, the government primary role is to protect people. Why would they even take the chance?
Okay, all right, Mike, thank you. Gwen's in Huddersfield. Gwen, welcome to the show. What would you like to say?
I'd like to say that it was a Class A drug. I live in a really nice area, and we don't have chimney pots, we don't have anything, we have fresh air, we're out in the sticks. And I've got a family living next door to me who constantly smoke, no matter what time I go out, they're smoking, morning, noon, anywhere. I could go out at midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning, and the smoking pot, they constantly smoke it. I believe the woman is, as psychosis was mentioned, there's 2 children in the house, they're smoking it, they're breathing it in all the time. I'm breathing it in all the time. And it is offensive to my neighbours. It's drifting all up the street. It not only hits me in the face, it hits them as they're coming out and they're thinking, well, oh God, who's smoking? Oh God. It's just ridiculous, and they've got no sense whatsoever. They're either fighting or they're giggling like hyenas. There's no sense to what they're doing. There's certainly a problem. And you're right about going into the town. Towns are becoming no-go areas because every time you go in, all you can smell is cannabis.
Okay.
And people are thinking, don't want to take our children there.
Okay, Gwen, I have to leave it there only because we've run out of time. Thank you for getting in touch. Don't forget,